Make no mistake, everyone, the animation world, and really the wider world of entertainment, is filled to the brim with cryptids.
Friday night, 9:30 p.m. I, Dipper Pines, and Mabel witnessed a creature which took a bite of my sock and ran into the closet.
Mysterious, intriguing creatures that roam the internet, looking to bestow pieces of their treasures upon the unwitting and often undeserving hackles of onlookers, who observe with awe and in anticipation of their next move, pondering the small nuggets of wisdom thrust forth that are shrouded within absurdist waxings of digital poetry. At least that's how people tend to treat those online who have created properties that become massively successful, but who still want to retain some semblance of a private life. And Alex Hirsch, creator of Gravity Falls, is no exception. If you weren't around during the 2010s era, in which case, what are you doing on the internet? You're probably like 10 years old. But if you were in fact present during this time, then you will likely be aware to some extent of the ironclad grip that Alex and his creations held within the animation community. He has pretty consistently been held in high regard for both his achievements in television, but also his openness, his wit, his ability to think outside the box and involve his audience much more tangibly than just watching the show through a screen. And on top of all that, being someone with a strong sense of character who has remained pretty morally consistent, which in today's world is honestly commendable. That's not me trying to dunk on anyone, by the way. It is just genuinely hard out here in a time of economic slumps to still have the energy to actively call out injustices in your field, but Alex does that in spades. And this is someone who has become what is essentially a golden example of getting to work on your dream job in entertainment and not have it massively tampered with. And in some ways, it feels like he was one of the last showrunners of the era to be able to do that. There have been a great deal of amazing projects since Alex came onto the scene, but they haven't quite been able to revel in the same freedoms that he did, often falling victim to cutbacks, cancellations, and restrictions. But I earnestly believe in the pendulum of time, and that sooner or later, that pendulum is going to swing back around, and we will see a renaissance of great works in the mainstream where people like Alex Hirsch will come about once again. But to do that, it might be worth knowing a little bit about how he got to this point, don't you think? And that's where I come in. Hello everyone, my name is Fionapollo, and welcome back to another installment of my Inspiring Animators series, where once a month we choose a prominent animator in the industry and take a look through their career, their flagship works, their art styles, what they're currently working on, all in the name of uplifting and spotlighting the hard work these people do to inspire others in kind. So this should have come out in May, but then of course, we Brits had our yearly allotted week of slightly warmer temperatures, and we all f***ing died.
Yes, burn the child.
But then we came back, so it's fine. Or not. Lots of people don't like us, which is fine. But it did mean that I couldn't be bothered to push this through because, I don't know about anyone else, but I don't like working while sweating my cold cuts off, thank you very much. So because of that, we're shuffling everything down the line. No biggie. I'm quite excited for this one. I personally was not a huge fan of Alex's stuff when it was first coming out. It was more just I enjoyed it in passing, but literally everyone around me, all of my friends, were obsessed with it, and it was just nice seeing everyone having fun. And then that kind of ended up happening a second time when we were older because Alex actually ran 2 shows that we'll be talking about, so please look forward to that. If you like what you're hearing, then please consider liking and subscribing. I talk a lot about the animation space, namely indie animation at the moment, but I also talk about pop culture, media tropes, and other fun art and entertainment-ish topics, so you're bound to find something you enjoy. So, as always, we're going to start at the beginning. Who is Alex Hirsch, and how did he grow to become the creator we all know and love today? Born on the 18th of June, 1985, Alex Hirsch grew up in Piedmont, California with his twin sister Ariel. Piedmont, from what I can gather, is largely a very residential city, with most of its land use dedicated to single-family dwellings and not that much else, as it shares a library and federal post office facilities with its neighboring city, Oakland. Perhaps due to this, between the ages of 9 and 13, both Alex and Ariel would be sent to visit their great-aunt, or Grantee Lois, and stay with her during the summer months as she lived in a log cabin in the woods, where they could play and experience the great outdoors. In an interview with both the Hirsch twins, Alex further elaborated that a lot of the more exaggerated adventures him and Ariel wished they could have during those summers ended up becoming realized within his show in some form or other. In an interview with the Creative Block podcast, he mentions that one of his earliest memories from being a baby was being on a green shag carpet and watching the Fantasia dinosaur sequence, being enraptured by the glow of the TV screen, and wanting to gravitate towards cartoons for a long time afterwards. He cited Mickey Mouse, Aladdin, CalArts, Calvin and Hobbes and The Simpsons as key inspirations that he was obsessed with growing up, stating that the real world was like this cold, grey, scary place, but cartoons felt like a safe haven for him, full of characters and scenarios he could relate to, and where he could escape for a short time. Because of this, Alex initially liked the idea of being a comic artist and making strips similar to Calvin and Hobbes, before then starting middle school and deciding that he wanted to make cartoons like Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons. During high school, Alex was also part of an improv project group where they would be prompted to think of answers to things off the cuff, which likely helped a lot to sharpen his mind. By sheer luck, a school friend of his told him about an animation summer program being offered at the California State Summer School for the Arts, which he applied to and successfully attended. He described the program as a complete life changer, as everyone in the school was exceptionally good at drawing, and it made him want to level up his own skills. During his time at this school, he met a fellow student called Austin Madison, who was a phenomenal artist for the age that he was. They were both 16 at this time, and after the summer program was done, it really motivated him to lock in and improve as much as he could. Thanks to this encounter with Austin, Alex took to searching up every drawing reference, analysing every kind of art style that interested him, every figure drawing and life drawing diagram, and studied all the fundamentals that dial-up internet at the time would allow. To this end, he amassed a portfolio and applied for the holy grail of animation schools, the California School of the Arts, and in Alex's own words, he very barely just made it in. He was put on a waitlist and attributed his entry to another student's deferral, but he did make it in. During his time at CalArts, he remarks that one of his favourite classes was to do with free writing, in which a teacher would provide a writing prompt like, "How do you imagine your future will be like?" or something similar, and 40 minutes of the hour-long session would be spent coming up with a story, which down the line became a far bigger component of Alex's professional work. Apparently this wasn't well received by a lot of his peers, but Alex was incredibly happy to spin narratives and invent plotlines, and ascribes this fascination due to works like Alice in Wonderland that employ a lot of absurdist elements and creative wordplay in its text. He has also mentioned that he would often analyse his favourite episodes of shows like The Simpsons to break down what it is he liked about them, and would often check the credits to see who was responsible for the episodes he enjoyed most. Gonna be honest with you all, but this is in fact an incredibly smart thing to do if there is a particular aspect of the pipeline you are interested in learning. Find out who does it best, and try to learn from them. Interestingly, he goes on to explain that throughout his time at CalArts, his main goal was to continuously improve at drawing, but despite loving the medium, in his own words, he says he wasn't actually that good at animation and struggled to create works that looked like they existed in a physical space, and that being in an environment surrounded by astonishingly skilled people all the time, well, it hurt. And honestly, I relate, because I was also pretty terrible at animating during university. So it's a very humbling experience to be in a class with all these artists who are so much further along in their art journeys than you. To be honest, I still feel like that, and it's clear that Alex may have also been dealing with something similar. I also just want to mention that throughout my research, even despite those kinds of feelings lingering around, every single time he mentions another animator, whether it be a classmate or a work colleague or someone he's just seen the work of or heard of, Alex is always gassing them up. He has nothing but positive things to say about people. Which, in the wake of the internet and how raging about something often means dunking on someone's hard work, this is just a really uplifting fact about him that I wanted to highlight. He just seems like a really decent human being. But back to it, during his sophomore year, he had a storyboard class where, again, the students would be encouraged to free write a scene as quickly as the time would allow. And this is where he got to let his writing ability and witty personality really shine through, because, to tell you the truth, one of the best things about storyboards is that they eliminate that need to be perfect drawings, just so long as the narrative itself is visually readable. Alex managed to create a storyboard that continuously drew out laughs from his fellow classmates. And here is where he ended up having a bit of an epiphany, in that while he may not be the best artist in the room, he knows he can make people laugh, which is an extremely valuable asset in cartoons and entertainment at large. Alex made a couple of interesting films while at CalArts, one of which was an experimental live-action 2D hybrid called Off the Wall, an episodic tween sitcom-style film documenting the antics of Walby, a drawing on the wall and his real-life friend. I don't know what it is about this film's vibes, but it really just reminds me of that genre of live-action Nickelodeon shows in the 2000s, except this is obviously hybrid. And for that reason alone, thanks to nostalgia, I kind of love it. The other film is called Cuddlebee Hugs and Such, a satirical, sub-2-minute short animation of an overly affectionate bumblebee and a deer that just wants to be left alone. The film is short, it's snappy, and while the animation is good, what it really spotlights is Alex's penchant for comedic writing. It's a fun little short that seems to inform a good few gags surrounding sarcastic and unconventional fairy tale animals or creatures in his other works. Alex graduated in 2007, and upon graduation was able to be accepted for a Pixar apprenticeship. Unfortunately though, by this point, his mind was already pretty made up that he wanted to do something in television. And for someone who was already more interested in writing than meticulous artworking, he found out that the Pixar apprenticeship was far too slow-paced for what he was looking for. He mentions in his podcast interview that he spoke to a few friends who graduated before him and did this apprenticeship, and then went on to have a job at Pixar, but when prompted for a few more details, many of them were given these really small and honestly downright piddly-sounding tasks, such as drawing in all the human noses while working on Wally's animatics, due to a revised story plot in which the humans in the film evolved to not require noses, or colouring all the balloons in Up's animatic screens because the executives said they didn't feel magical enough. And you know what, yeah, it makes sense why Alex didn't want to hang around and do that. It might be okay for some, like I would actually enjoy that because I'm quite happy to be a worker bee on someone else's thing, but it's not for everyone, you know? So what he did instead is he declined Pixar's offer and instead went to work as a storyboarder and writer on a Cartoon Network show known as The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack.
I have no choice but to live on my own.
But baby!
Alongside a good chunk of his old CalArts school friends who were an array of other hugely prominent animators, all of whom went on to create their own cartoons, including Penn Ward with Adventure Time, James Quintel with Regular Show, and Patrick McHale with Over the Garden Wall. Honestly, when you think about it, Flapjack didn't nearly get as many flowers as it deserved. It was witty, exuberant, fun, and it unleashed a generation of talent into the industry. It's kind of crazy. He worked on Flapjack for about 2-ish years until around 2009, before being contacted by Disney to pitch a concept for a show. He then set to work creating a multitude of ideas and presented them, of which they organised a second meeting that was a lot more focused. And so in a seafood restaurant with Eric Coleman and Mike Moon, Alex presented the first ever pitch for Gravity Falls. Following this, they agreed that they liked the idea and would allow Alex to work on it so long as he developed something for them in return. He agreed, and this eventually became one of the 2 pilot episodes for the show Fish Hooks that were never released to the public, so we don't actually have any clue what they were like. Fair is fair though, they must have been good enough because what followed would be a cartoon that became an explosive phenomenon.
Time to open the window!
Following his work on the Fish Hooks pilot, Disney kept their promise and allowed Alex to develop the show. And if there was any show that could encapsulate the 2010s era, you need look no further than Gravity Falls. If you frequented fandom Tumblr between the years of like 2013 to 2017, you could not escape this show. It was absolutely everywhere. The story follows 2 twin siblings, Dipper and Mabel, being made to spend the summer with their great uncle Stan, owner of the one and only Mystery Shack, a veritable museum of oddities that is completely legit and definitely not a tourist trap, in the mysterious town of Gravity Falls, Oregon, where Dipper locates a mysterious book that outlines various mysteries and unexplained phenomena within the area. Alex himself describes the show like a mix of The Simpsons and Twin Peaks, but for kids, which honestly fits quite well. Apparently, the idea for the show came about when he and a friend, Adrian Molina, created a game with each other to think of 5 show ideas a day, and whoever gave up first would have to write a 40-page pitch of the other person's choosing. After about 7 days of this, they both agreed to a truce, but the last script Alex concocted for this game was a premise revolving around a soon-to-be college graduate who packs up everything he owns, including his magic 8-ball and talking dog, to go on an adventure to Gravity Falls, a mysterious town filled with cults, teenage psychics, and gnomes. I love that the gnomes have been a constant from the beginning. The bulk of the show is largely inspired by those summers at his Grantee's cabin, and his relationship and childhood adventures with his sister Ariel. He described having a twin sister as being assigned a best friend at birth, and they did absolutely everything together, but also drove each other kind of crazy and had to share one of everything. You can definitely see that dynamic portrayed one for one with Dipper and Mabel. They very clearly care about each other and are more or less best friends, but they can also get on each other's nerves and even lead to some crazy hijinks in the show. Dipper is the more neurotic, nerdy, analytical twin, obsessed with uncovering the mysteries surrounding Gravity Falls, while Mabel is a happy-go-lucky boy-crazy bundle of sunshine. The two serve as natural foils to each other in some episodes, while in others, their eccentricities work so well together that they manage to find solutions to whatever comes their way. The show was an incredible blend of absurd and fantastical, and sometimes quite dark escapades undertaken either by the twins or other members of the core cast, including Grunkle Stan, Seuss, Wendy, and many other wider characters residing in the town. This show also seemed to be the starting point for Disney cartoons that were able to take on subject matters that were decidedly edgier than previous shows. At least, I think so. I didn't grow up with Disney Channel, so I have no clue what was being shown before this, but I doubt many Disney cartoon properties at the time were indulging in cults, Illuminati imagery, or mildly cryptid horror elements. One thing about the show that especially stuck is that it more or less helped to define the overarching episodic formula of modern cartoons, as despite the fact that many of the situations Dipper and Mabel would find themselves in were reminiscent of more traditional cartoon adventures, but then as the mysteries of Gravity Falls were uncovered, and characters like Grunkle Stan and Gideon and Bill Cipher were brought to the forefront, this added a whole other layer on top of an already great narrative that really extended that audience engagement and retention. One thing that also really spurred the show forward, which a crew member remarks on in the documentary video One Crazy Summer, A Look Back at Gravity Falls, is that the characters' emotions were taken seriously, and this was actually quite new ground for a children's cartoon. Bear in mind, Gravity Falls predated Steven Universe, which was famous for its emotional depth by about 17 months. In fact, many different characters got to have their own overarching development throughout the series' run. Wendy learned to be more sincere as opposed to always falling back on her cool girl persona. Stan worked on his integrity and put aside his own wants for the sake of his family. Even lesser-centric characters to the overall plot, like Pacifica, would have episodes that contained moments of reflection and redemption, of which small trips would eke out in episodes that came after, while still maintaining that light-hearted episodic status quo that helps keep the show's energy consistent. The emotional core of the show was, of course, Dipper and Mabel's family bond, which also riffed off of how in the middle of the woods and in the absence of other friends, smartphones and video games, where you had only each other for company and entertainment, the Hirsch twins relied on each other and became that much closer during those times. And by extension, this worked as the framework behind the Pines twins' ability to work together and stick by each other, even in the face of unparalleled terror. And it would also be remiss of me not to comment on the fact that Gravity Falls, as if by design, ended up raising a generation of conspiracy theorists, thanks to its heavy focus on secrets and cover-ups, often linking some of these instances in the show to things like the government. The birds work for the bourgeoisie, people. We all know it. Alex is remarkably staunch in his views against the big establishments, being a storyteller who, despite being offered some great opportunities, is still working in an industry that is beholden to the whims of some powerful people. And this really bleeds through in his work in a bunch of different ways. And that also went further than just criticising local authorities, as another significant aspect of Gravity Falls was the whole mystery theming that went beyond the screen. One centric part of the plot was that something big was lurking in the background, waiting to be unlocked. And to add to fans' intrigue surrounding this, Alex would fill episodes with secret messages, encoded text, and images that alluded to the true nature of the show. And this didn't go unappreciated nor unnoticed, as fans were very quickly able to discern that at the centre of the story was revolving around a big bad, triangular in shape and sworn enemy to a six-fingered madman who took it upon himself to chronicle the mysteries of Gravity Falls in all its glory. Alex himself even admitted during the show's run that he was impressed fans were able to put the pieces together so quickly, and this really helped give an added dimension of delight and involvement with the audience. This was of course before the days where people got really heavily parasocial and just started attacking people online instead of just enjoying what they were given. I do kind of miss this era of entertainment, not gonna lie. But like many shows under Disney, Alex wasn't quite able to exercise as much freedom as he wanted to in certain respects. In part due to the culture of the time, the 2010s placed a large focus on emerging representation in media for various minority groups, and Alex has always been a very strong and consistent voice for LGBT rights. Unfortunately, the company he worked under is fairly conservative and shot down many small nods that he wanted to include in the show. One of the biggest examples of this was the sadly never-to-be background granny lesbians. The original storyboards included two old ladies, one of whom wanted to ask the other out, and then being lifted into the air. Disney did not like this, and pretty much blocked it the whole way through. So instead, in the final episode of the show, Alex decided to canonize the two police officers, Sheriff Blubbs and Deputy Durland. Respect, honestly. Despite the fact that he very clearly enjoyed working on the show and appreciated the opportunity to do what he did, he, like other showrunners at the time, fought back and tried to sneak in little morsels of rep where he could. Some years back, he even released a compilation of correction notes he received on various episodes that executives wanted him to implement, to which he would bite back at them over, forcing somewhat of a compromise. And some of them were really stupid. Like, look at this. Not all of them were to do with LGBT stuff, obviously, but we can assume that some of them were. It was an uphill battle, but he did indeed help pave the way for more overt forms of rep to finally be shown on screen, and we can only be thankful for that. Despite that though, the show has received no end of high praise both during and after its run between June 15th, 2012 to February 15th, 2016, concluding on Alex's terms with the second season being sent off with a 1-hour finale titled Weirdmageddon. It's been praised for everything from its clever writing, dynamic character design, designs and stunning animation. Gravity Falls actually happens to hold a 100% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes for both seasons, which is no small feat. Even critically acclaimed animated shows like BoJack Horseman don't even have that. And when the episode A Tale of Two Stands aired on Disney XD, it became the highest rated telecast ever on the network, further proving the overwhelmingly positive response this show got from viewers and fans. And even after the show ended in 2016, Alex then went on to further throw in a bit of whimsy surrounding the show by throwing an international treasure hunt known as the Cipher Hunt, which involved things like decoding riddles and codes, and even solving a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. The ultimate goal of this treasure hunt was to locate a real-life statue of the show's main antagonist, Bill Cipher, which was teased in the intro sequence. The hunt finally came to a head in August 2016 as the statue was found in Reedsport, Oregon, before being removed and held by the authorities before it was permanently moved. What a way to end a good thing though, eh? Gravity Falls is applauded as being one of the crowning achievements of children's television, particularly for Disney, and is still widely loved even today, hence why I'm obviously talking about it. Its influence even reached the point where not only has it cemented its place in the hearts and minds of millions, but it also kickstarted the careers of many brilliant showrunners who came after, including Dana Terrace, Darren Nefsey, Matt Brawley, and a few others too, all of whom even included Easter eggs of their own that played homage to the series. There's honestly so much I could say about this show, but we still have some other things to talk about, and while, yeah, there is still quite a lot I could say about this, we're not done yet, so let's keep it pushing.
I have seen the face of beauty.
Alright, so here's the plan. I'm gonna talk through a bit of what I'm doing. Probably not much though, because as you can hear, I'm not very confident just talking off the cuff, but I managed to gather a couple of Alex Hirsch's sketches and drawings that I could find scattered around the internet. He's definitely more of a writer than an artist. He's still a fantastic artist. He went to CalArts for fuck's sake, but it shows a lot in his works that he is more comfortable writing than he is doing full-blown illustrations, of which I really couldn't find many. So we're going to work with what we've got, and we're going to see what the result is. Also, if you're wondering what happened here, my grandparents have a manic chihuahua. Nah, he's he's adorable really, but he chews everything. Okay, so right off the bat, the main thing that you will absolutely see is the similarities to The Simpsons. Round eyes, close together, the stub noses, the Simpsons mouths, which a lot of people conflate with the CalArts style. It's actually The Simpsons, after hearing Alex talk about it, which is really interesting. It's definitely got that kind of cartoon sitcom-y style to it, which I actually really like a lot. Sometimes they have eyebrows, sometimes they don't, from what I can see. I'm just looking at a picture of Dipper at the moment. The one I'm looking at doesn't actually have any eyebrows. I actually can't remember whether he has any or not. I'm gonna need to double check that. Should really look at that, shouldn't I? There's a little pine hat, little tufts, little circular ear. I think I've drawn Dipper once or twice. It would have been back when the show was airing though, back in my Tumblr days. Jeez, how old was that? Still a little noodle arm here. There's our first little sketch at Dipper. What do you think? It's not the best in the world, but you know what? We're not aiming for perfection here, we're aiming for similarity, you know? Let's try maybe a side profile. I'm kind of doing these from memory at the moment, so they may not be absolutely perfect, and then I'm actually going to look at the proper character designs and see how close I got. So, main characteristics of the face: eyes, nose, bean mouth. Maybe not quite that happy. They tend to be quite close together, I've noticed. A lot of the times he will give them little lines under the eyes, like that. But this seems to be the general rule of the Hirsch kind of art style that we've observed. And if we were to look at more of an adult character, these cartoon characteristics are definitely a lot more overt and a lot more obvious in a character like, say, Stan, you know, Stan the Man. So we've got the huge ear glugs, we've got this really big nose, and still got the eyes quite close together. I keep drawing them with like a little bit of space, and there shouldn't be any. In fact, they should actually overlap a little bit. I think I've also made his face here a little bit too big. It seems to almost work like this, so that's what I'm trying to aim for. It's not working out great because I'm terrible at live drawing apparently. We're just aiming to get like the essence of the characters down. Money Pac-Man face, Oh, and his glasses. He wears glasses. Can't forget that. There we go, that's looking a lot more like Uncle Stan. Also, just give him his little KFC bow. There you go. He's kind of, Stan is very boxy, whereas a lot of the kid characters tend to be more rounded. Almost like he's stealing a famous painting. Probably. Knowing Stan. Oh yeah, that actually looks way more like him now. Let's try drawing some Mabel next, huh? So, from what I can see, Mabel is adorable as always, but I'm noticing that Mabel's head seems to be a little bit longer than Dipper's. Of course, we've got the same markers again. We have the eyes, the little pencil eyebrows up here, down here, where her hair goes, put a little ear here, just has a couple of little lashes, and then we round this off. This becomes her hairband, and then we also extend that down here. We also give her a little hair tuft here as well. Unlike Dipper, Mabel actually has a neck from the looks of it. Of course, she has her sweaters. God knows how she was wearing sweaters all summer. I'm wearing a long sleeve jumper right now and it's 30 degrees and I want to die. Yeah, I do really like Mabel. She's quite fun. Who else can we do? Maybe we can do Wendy next. Here we go. So here is Wendy. So she is, again, pretty simple. She has quite a pointed chin. She actually has quite a pointed nose compared to the others. Big eyes. She has some hair hiding her eye. You can tell this was made in the 2010s when everyone was crushing on like the emo girls and like the goths all hung out together. Nowadays everything's more of an aesthetic, less so than like a defined identity for people. It's kind of sad to be honest, but that's just the way culture is at the moment, I suppose. I may have made those eyes a little bit too big, that's fine. Wendy's going to be a little bit stoned, so that's fine. Some freckles. Cool, okay. I'm noticing that quite a few of like the core cast do look extremely different to one another, which I do appreciate. And that's one of the nice things about having this more kind of simplified, cartoony style, is that you get to be like really creative with the characters. And you get to really, really bring out the personalities in their design more so than something that may be a little bit more realistic. And it's just really nice. It's a really nice style to look at. Alright, now I'm going to swap over to this side and I'm going to see if I can draw Mint in the Gravity Falls style and see if I can kind of emulate what I've been replicating here in some fashion. It's not going to be huge, it's just going to be a couple of little doodles, but we'll see what we come up with. So, we're going to start with that signature face. I think maybe we'll replicate Wendy's a little bit, because that just seems to be the character that's the most similar. Do the little stub nose, do the eyes, remember to actually have them together. I'm still making them a little too far apart. There we go. I don't know whether this is working out much, but you know, should be fine. Maybe it's the green. Maybe the green just isn't a green. Yeah, this feels very goofy for like Mint. Also, a lot of the Gravity Fall hairstyles don't really have a lot of sharp edges. I'm gonna do it more like this. It feels bizarre. It feels like it's working. It feels like it looks like it's working. Little turtleneck. Yeah, I reckon that looks good, right? I think it looks good. I hope. I pray. Let's try from the side. So, yeah, I don't know if that one kind of worked, but it was an effort. An effort was made. An attempt was made. Okay, let's try and draw one more thing. Let's try and do a full body. So, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? I'm thinking this is too blunt. Let's pick something else. Let's try not to overcomplicate it. Poses and the line of action in most Gravity Falls characters are not that difficult. They're mostly just beanpoles with a lot of flexibility. Even the characters who aren't beanpoles, they have kind of that beanpole flexibility in terms of how their bodies move. I think the only exception tends to be characters like Uncle Stan, who is very boxy, or to be honest, even Zeus is even Zeus tends to be pretty flexible. I might do Boy Mint for this, I think. Yeah, let's do Boy Mint. Why not? I don't think the feet are all that defined either. To be honest, this might be too detailed for the style. That's fine. And I think I'm just going to line a couple of these. Maybe fill out the rest of the page with some more sketches. But for the most part, I think this is kind of what we're looking at in terms of the art style. So the main thing is big facial expressions, big facial features, big eyes, big mouth. We have a very defined line of action in a lot of these, and that comes across regardless of what body type the character has, whether it be quite tall and slim like Wendy, or boxy like Grunkle Stan, or maybe more of like the flower bag shape like what Seuss has. And even the kids, even like the kind of small circular kind of shapes, they're all very strong, they're all very well done. And yeah, it's just a very pleasant style. Like, it's simplistic. You could definitely tell where the inspiration comes from. It very much comes from like The Simpsons and like those other kind of sitcom style shows. Maybe a bit of South Park too, maybe a bit of American Dad, I don't know. But definitely that kind of matte graining origination. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Now, can anyone remind me why we came here?
In addition to Gravity Falls, Alex was also a producer on Shion Takeuchi's Netflix adult animated series Inside Job, which also had a pretty large focus on conspiracies and the underlying mystery surrounding governmental secrets. The series is a workplace-style comedy show centered around a brilliant tech engineer called Reagan, who works for the shadow government Cognito Inc., which controls Earth and harbors many of Earth's conspiratorial entities within its confines. The show was a hit, and many fans of Gravity Falls who enjoyed Alex's humor and writing also thoroughly enjoyed the series, which was renewed for a second season, but then, for whatever reason, was tragically cut short by Netflix after part 2 of season 1 dropped, and it was cancelled. It's both a massive shame and a gigantic pain in the neck that this happened, because you could really see that the show and its crew was hitting its stride as it went on, and this put a ton of people out of work both suddenly and unnecessarily. And not gonna lie to you, but is it any wonder creatives and even regular people are being radicalized against big corporations when they pull shit like this? No wonder Alex is so openly critical. Despite the untimely end though, it is still an incredibly enjoyable series, and if you can find it on the internet, whether that's through Netflix or not, but you didn't hear that through me, I would encourage you to take a look. On top of being a showrunner, Alex is also somewhat of a renaissance man given how he also voiced many of his own characters, and he continued on with being a voice actor for several characters in animated shows developed for TV, streaming, and the web after Inside Job. So I didn't know this initially, but I'm sure as hell glad I found out. But one project Alex is currently helping with is being the voice of Mr. Man Guyfella in Umbert Actually, which originated in 2024 as a series of shorts created by the indie studio Jellybox, intended to raise awareness about the Animation Guild negotiations taking place in Burbank. Jellybox then released a Kickstarter that raised well over $100,000 to produce an entire series of info shorts covering topics like media literacy, the history of animation, the problems plaguing the production of anime, video games, and so much more. The series is currently still in production, but I've actually used Umbert Actually for some of my research into certain topics in the past, so it was a really pleasant surprise to find out that Alex was involved with it in some way. Alex also happens to do this for other shows, particularly those in the Disney catalogue, including Phineas and Ferb, Wander Over Yonder, Star Vs, The Owl House, Amphibia, and he's even done so for a couple of web series such as Big Top Burger, and also some indie productions such as Matt Brawley's Clara and the Below. Alex also apparently has one other Netflix series currently in the works, though we don't have that much info on it at the moment, so that's gonna have to be one we exercise a bit of patience with, but I reckon it'll be another fun dive into his mindscape. Overall, Alex is a quirky and ambitious guy who truly loves what he does. He loves creating and extends that love and care towards the people around him. You know what I said earlier about how Alex was constantly gassing up anyone he mentioned during interviews? Well, it seems like this was the case vice versa as well, and it was true for everyone else who worked on the show with him. Robert Ryan Corey even remarks that Alex is one of the best directors he ever worked with. I'm really glad we have people like Alex Hirsch in the world because he really exhibits such a sense of ambition and flexibility in how he was willing to achieve what he wanted. He was great with humor, he enjoyed writing, he loved doing funny voices, and he treated any production he headed like a group of friends trying to have fun. And who could really ask for anything better than that in this day and age? Thank you for everything you've done for animation, Alex, and thank you all very much for watching. So, another one down. What do you guys guys think. Obviously, these videos are more so just snippets that aren't really able to capture everything, but what they do catch is the essence of what I love about the people who go on to inspire so many others. That said, I'll be doing one more American animator as promised. We are doing the Disney Creator Trilogy as agreed, but after that, I want to move away from strictly American animators because, well, the series is all about what I find inspiring just as much as anyone else, even though, yeah, what these guys have managed to do is great, but to live in America and be in such close proximity to California especially is a very exclusive privilege for creatives, and I just really like to explore the achievements of other animators from different parts of the world than just the big places like the US or Japan. So if you guys have any suggestions on that, feel free to drop them in the comments. I would love to look into them. But that is all from me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you as always to my fantastic Patreon supporters. Thank you to my tip jar supporter, Pazanti Cat. Thank you to my YouTube peeps, Manuel Exom Gonzalez, Mystic Mind, Lauren R, Ash Valentine, Lonim Maher, Craig, Edboy, Steph Doodles, Why Not Warrior, and Tyshawn. And an extra special thank you to my indie production supporters, Morgan LaFayette Thin, Matty A, Kiyoshi, Roundcat, Arsonist, and Nomad Bob. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, a link can be found in the video description. Stay safe everyone, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!